Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's great to be here as always. Thank you for tuning in. And I've got a couple things that have been brought to my attention that are a little bit concerning, and I wanted to kind of run them by you. The first thing is that the word on the street is that NFA approval times are going up. Basically, reallocation of resources and personnel around the government are causing efficiency problems, and those Form 4 approval times are going up. Now, what does that mean? I don't know, because I personally am an SOT, and I haven't done a Form 4 transfer in a couple months. Now, I will tell you that Form 3s were taking a really long time. We used to joke that it takes 3 minutes to fill out a Form 3 and 3 days to get it back. Well, the last Form 3 that I did took like 3 weeks, which is ridiculous. So I don't know if that's part of the calculus there or not, but the word on the street is that those Form 4s are taking more time. Now, when we're talking relatively, the last Form 4 that I participated in took like 72 hours, right? So if we're talking like, oh, well, it takes like a week, well, that's not really all that bad, considering that, you know, I have waited for over a year for a Form 4 before. So everything is a little bit relative, but I wanted to kind of throw this out there and ask you guys if any of you are seeing expansion in Form 4 times. This bug was put in my ear by the good folks over at Gun Owners of America, and I was kind of afraid that something like this was going to happen when I heard that different elements are being moved around. And while we like the concept of taking the law enforcement elements of the BATFE, which should not exist, by the way, from the backs of the American citizen, the peaceable American citizen, and reallocating them to areas that actually need law enforcement attention, does not mean that the administrative staff gets to skirt, delay, or flat out just not do paperwork type functions. Remember that the ATF is supposed to be a tax collection agency, not a law enforcement agency. Y'all know how I feel about taxes, but it is a tax stamp. It is literally a tax return that you get when you do your ATF Form 4 and it is approved. They don't get to stop doing those just because there's inefficiencies in the department. In fact, I would argue that it should be, under the current climate and current law, the only thing that the ATF is doing. Basically, if you want to keep your job, go do Form 4s. This video was brought to you by Medical Gear Outfitters. They are my go-to stop for all things medical. It doesn't matter whether you need something that just holds a bunch of Band-Aids and maybe some aspirin or something like that, or if you need an actual trauma kit. If you don't have a trauma kit in your house or in your vehicle, then I highly suggest that you go check our people out at Medical Gear Outfitters, and they offer all of you a discount. You can find all of that information over at the affiliates page in all the relevant places, and use that to great effect. The NFA process. Outdated, draconian, ridiculous. It started in 1934, and that predates the National Instant Check System by 60 some years. And elements of the NFA process were kind of hammered out in the Gun Control Act, but that's still 30 years from the National Instant Check System. So depending on which way you look at it, 30 years or 60 years out of date. And we're talking the form, we're talking the concept of fingerprint cards, we're talking about the concept of a tax stamp, we're talking about the concept of a passport photo. All of that crap predates the concept of being able to get on a computer, type in somebody's information at your FFL, and instantly get a message back from the FBI saying yes or no, right? Predates all that, way outdated, but we're still using it, and it's ridiculous that we're still using it. And I would like to point out that there is a bill to abolish that, and that should be front and center in Congress. However, there is another bill that has been submitted by Jim Risch of Idaho. This was submitted in the 118th Congress as well, so we have the text of it from the 118th Congress, but it's been resubmitted. And the purpose of this is, among other things, to basically say you got 90 days to do the NFA process, ATF. If you don't get it done in 90 days, then it's automatically approved. Now, I have a couple concerns here. First of all, why are we even doing this? take that bill, the repeal the NFA bill, put it out there on the floor, and if somebody with an R doesn't vote for it, then they should be recalled. The second concern that I have is the 90-day window is way too long, okay? If you want to be reasonable, 30 days. But I would say that there's no reason that it needs to take that long either. We've already seen that they can get the high volume that has been exhibited over the course of the last several months done in a matter of hours. There's no reason to give them 90 days. So my concern about the 90-day window is that they will simply, if this is passed, just sit there and let everything just be 90 days, where if you're going to submit the form and you'll basically never hear back is what will happen. We've seen this process in other applications, and basically what that will mean is if you institute a 90-day window and it's just automatically approved, like a shall issue 90 days and then it's automatically approved, then what you'll end up with is autopilot. And that means that those staff that are currently filling out the paperwork, currently approving the paperwork, will stop doing it. It'll just automatically get approved after 90 days, and those people will have free time to do other crap that we don't want them to have free time to do. Oh, come on, Kurt. That would never happen. You're just making that up. It's a figment of your imagination. What are you on? It would never happen that way. Oh, really? Well, there is a thing called an ATF Form 2. That is a Notice of Firearms Manufacture or Importation. And I can't tell you how many of these that I have filled out over the years, but it's a lot of them over the course of my career. And I have only ever received back 2 of those forms approved. The rest of them are still sitting there pending. In fact, I just checked, and some of them are over 5 years old that have just never even been looked at, because there is no status quo change if they approve it or they don't approve it whatsoever. It's just a notice, hey, by the way, I made a thing, or hey, I imported a thing. There you go. And then later, as an FFL, there is another form that you fill out every year that tells them how many you brought in, how many you made of each type, and all that sort of stuff. So if they need to reconcile that data, then they can that way. Basically, there is no deadline on an ATF Form 2 because it automatically gets approved. Does that sound familiar? While I like the idea of automatic approval, the concept here is that that will kick them in the pants to go and do the thing faster. And that's not how that's going to happen. What they're going to do is they're going to get the form, they're going to run a NICS check, make sure all the paperwork is in order, and then they're just going to put it into a pile, and it will automatically be approved after 90 days, which, depending on which era you're in, is a good deal. But I think that the concept here of 90 days is far too much, because that's just simply what's going to happen. If you wanted them to actually process the data and look at the data faster to actually see if there's any fraudulent applications there for people that, quote unquote, shouldn't be able to gain access to these things, even though in my opinion that does not exist, all the way back to 1791, brothers and sisters, all the way back to 1791. 7 days for automatic approval. That would be acceptable.